And one day you'll look back and realize you didn't just stay in the room where the action happens, you built the room where it happens.
Hey, champions, welcome to another Champion Circle training that we bring to you every single month on the principles from one of our favorite books here, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Last month, we talked about decision, and this month, we're jumping into the wonderful principle of persistence. And we got to be persistent in the things that we do, especially once we make a decision, because without persistence after a decision, things are just going to go on the wayside. So we have brought together several speakers to be able to share their wisdom today. We're going to start off with an amazing speaker, the founder of Champion Circle, Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., who will then be followed by Mr. Ian Stermer. And then I myself will be able to share my experience with you at the end. So without further ado, we're going to turn the time over to the founder of Champion Circle, who is going to share with us how with persistence, we need to be staying in the room of where it happens. Jon, take it away.
So I was under my desk on all fours when it hit me. Not metaphorically, like literally, I had dropped my pen and bent down to grab it and thought out loud, I wish I could hide under my desk all day. In an instant, I realized something pretty profound because that thought had never crossed my mind. I had a great job with great people and a clear 10-year career path, but I was hiding from my own life. And if you've ever felt stuck in a job or a relationship or a routine that looked good on paper but felt wrong in your soul, you know exactly what I mean. So that same pen that rolled under my desk actually became the pen I used to write my resignation letter that same day. No other job was lined up. I had no backup plan, just one stubborn thought. I'm meant for something else. A few weeks earlier, I had stumbled into my very first mastermind meeting. Just a small boardroom in Salt Lake City. It was awesome. But it wasn't like any other meeting I'd ever attended. There was this awesome energy. The ideas were profound. Accountability from relationship to relationship. People who cared enough to tell you the truth and cheer you on at the same time. I remember thinking, oh man, this is where I'm supposed to be. There was just one problem. It was a pretty high level mastermind, therefore, it cost $500 a month. And I remember just one thing. I had just quit my job, but I was persistent. I drove Uber. I delivered pizzas. I did contract work. I even went to great lengths to donate my plasma every week. I earned about $100 an hour for my own blood just to keep the lights on, to feed my wife and myself, and to keep my seat at the table in that boardroom. And it worked. Week after week, I showed up, participated, competed for the opportunity chair, which is the place where we get to learn and grow from the other members. We called it the hot seat, and it's where you get everyone's best ideas and accountability. And I gave as much as I got, if not more. Persistence isn't just about showing up for yourself, it's about showing up for others. So in that mastermind, I watched incredible things happen. A concierge suit tailor tripled his clients in just 3 months. An Etsy seller of synthetic dreadlocks went viral worldwide. A health coach lost 90 pounds and built a thriving coaching business around his transformation. Also, an 18-year-old drone photographer went from scooping ice cream on Friday nights to making six figures in real estate photography. And that's just a few of the examples in this small boardroom. But here's the thing, none of them did it alone. They did it with persistence, yes, but also with the people who believed in them when they were tired of believing when they were tired of believing in themselves. Okay, sometimes we need the camaraderie of others to amplify our own persistence. Napoleon Hill called it a spirit of harmony in the mastermind. That's where two or more people gathered with a definite purpose, willing to share openly and support each other without reservation. That's a true mastermind, in my opinion. So, in my first year facilitating masterminds, I logged more than 1,000 hours preparing rooms, running sessions, holding people accountable, not because someone paid me to do it, but because I believed in that same power of persistence that I felt in the other boardroom. And I had seen what happens when people refuse to quit on their own goals and refuse to let each other quit. That was a powerful, powerful tool in my belt. So you fast forward, we ran an experiment. We combined networking, fun, mastermind methods that I had learned from those hours of work in that sequence. And then we put it into a free monthly group. We tracked the results, and in just 9 months of doing these small activities, over $20 million was transacted between the members. That was deals, partnerships, sales, all because people kept showing up, giving value, and persisting together. That accountability led to some of the most miraculous outcomes for small businesses in just the small Salt Lake area. And we've kept that same formula alive. We show up, we give more than you take, and we persist. That is our champion circle methodology. Here's what I have learned. Persistence is not willpower. Willpower, it'll burn out. But persistence is clarity of purpose, knowing exactly what you're fighting for and surrounding yourself with the right people so you don't give up when it gets hard. So when I started, persistence looked like late night pizza deliveries and plasma donations. But today, it looks like investing thousands of hours into building the rooms where others can win. Same principle, different stage. That's our philosophy. So here's my challenge to you. Identify your $500 a month mastermind table, that thing you know absolutely will change your life, but feels just out of reach. Remember the pen? And then commit to it with everything you have. Give all that you can give. I had a wife, I had no job, but I picked up jobs. I did whatever it took to stay in that room. You too can drive for Ubers, deliver pizzas, sell that ice cream, donate plasma if you have to, okay? But the truth is, persistence isn't pretty in the moment. All of that led to what I'm doing today. And it wasn't pretty, but I'll tell you what was. Hindsight. It's hindsight is what's truly beautiful when you look at the story. And one day you'll look back and realize you didn't just stay in the room where the action happens. You built the room where it happens. Thank you.
Awesome, John. Thank you for your training. Persistence is just that important, because without persistence, like where's the consistency? How do we move forward in our lives? And so with that, I want to introduce Mr. Ian Stermer, who's going to share with us his experience about persistence. Because as we're persistent, we get things done. So, Ian, go ahead and take us away with your amazing wisdom and experience with the principle of persistence.
Thank you, Willie. So when I was in high school, I was a long distance runner. I did mile, 2 mile, ran cross country. And we kind of made fun of the football players. No offense if you're a football player out there, but they would have their huddle and up, and they'd shout out some numbers and they'd do all these things that I didn't quite understand. So we decided to start doing the same thing. So we'd get in a huddle and one of us would say, "What's our strategy?" Run. Okay, run fast, run far. All right, let's go. And we'd go out, and some of them ran better than me. But it was simple. All we had to do was run. If you have in cross country, you're in the mile, the 2 mile, even if you're doing the 50 yards or 50 meter, they still call it a dash, the 50-meter race. All you have to do is run. You just run, and when you get to the end, you stop. At its core, that's persistence. You just have to do it. There's an old joke of a woman on her 100th birthday was interviewed, and the reporter said, well, what's your secret to living a long life? Well, don't die. That's all there is. I wish that was all there is. Persistence gets so much deeper, though. There's so much more that's required to be able to really be persistent, to continue on to that end. And it's not an easy thing to do, because there's so many things that stop us from what we want, that stop us from that goal before we really reach that finish line. And there's a few of those that I want to kind of go over, and there's kind of 5 real reasons that I think stop us before we get there. And the first one is, it's really hard. It's unfair that life is so hard, and it's hard to reach these goals and hard to get to that finish line. But it's so easy to say, it's easy to say it's hard. I didn't mean that to come out that way, but it's easy to give up, because when we're planning something, hey, how hard can a marathon be? You just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. And pretty soon you find out it's hard. How hard can it be to start a business? How hard can it be to train a puppy? They're all hard. Anything that we're working at, any goals we're going for, are going to be very hard. I remember just a simple example. I was on a camping trip with my son and some friends a few years ago, and there was this quite steep hill close by. And I'm not in the same shape I was back when I was in high school running. So a few people had gone up the top, and I said, oh, that seems like a nice hill to climb. So I got about halfway up, and it was hot out. It was actually really hot out. I was tired. I was sweating. I was thirsty. And I thought, this is kind of hard. I don't think I really need to go to the top. So I turned around and I started heading back down. Then I met up a couple other friends who were on their way up, and I felt guilty and wimpy to say no. So they convinced me. We walked up to the top, and it was a beautiful view. It was worth that once I got up there. But it was hard, and I wanted to give up. I actually did give up until it turned around, because it was hard. So the first thing that stops persistence is simply things are hard. And we have to realize that it's going to be hard, and we have to live with that and just move on. I'm going to say the second one that makes us stop is the unknown outcome. Now, that was part of that same thing, climbing that hill for me. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I thought it'd probably be a nice view. I didn't know how nice it would be. I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted, what was going to happen when I got there. So it's easy to give up if you don't really know where you're going or what you want to get to. You don't know what the reward is going to be. Why are you going to spend all that effort if you don't know what the reward is? So understanding your reward is going to help you to be more persistent, having that clear vision in the end. And say a third one is lack of resources and planning. This can be a big one, especially in a business setting. I've talked to several people who have started businesses, and they say, no, I've got everything I need to start this business. It's going to be wonderful as long as I'm making a good profit by month 4. Otherwise, I'm out of money and have to quit. And sadly, that happens a lot. A lack of planning ahead of time is going to cause you to not be able to be persistent sometimes, even if you want to. Now, as we heard from Jon Kovach Jr. earlier, sometimes there's things you can do about that. Maybe you can drive an Uber, you can donate plasma, you can do something, you can find another round of funding. But you need to plan those things out ahead of time. Not having a plan for your resources and what it's going to take is going to make it very difficult to be persistent in doing that, and easy to give up and become frustrated due to that lack of planning at the beginning. The fourth one is unreasonable expectations. Um, this happens to me all the time. I've been to the gym several times, and never once have I come out of the gym suddenly being a lot more buff and in better shape and healthier. Um, I wish it did, but I went there just last month and it didn't work that time either. Um, I had an unreasonable expectation. You can't just do something once, like going to the gym, and have it suddenly work out. You can't just set up a website and suddenly expect to have a huge amount of traffic. You can't just sit down on a computer and start typing and expect to have a best-selling book. You have to have a reasonable expectation of the work that it takes to get into it. The time, the money, the resources, the education, the planning, the practice, all of these things have to go in before you're going to reach that real goal. Persistence is not just always putting one foot in front of the other, but it's putting one foot in front of the other on multiple different fronts, on the planning, the practice, the resources, the goal setting, all of this. You have to be persistent in every aspect of what you're doing. And the sixth one, I'm going to say, is truly the root of why we are not persistent in achieving our goals in the things that we want to do. And it's the very first thing that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. His first step in the steps of riches is desire. If you don't have a real desire to do it, you're not going to. You can say, oh, yeah, I'll give it a try, see what happens. We do that with things that are unimportant. But if we really have a goal or set something we want to do, but we haven't built that desire in ourselves, we just don't put the effort. We don't look for the resources. We don't look for ways to overcome obstacles. So I think the biggest one is we need to have a true burning desire. We need to build in our hearts such a huge raging fire of desire that we have no choice but to move forward. We have to do it. Giving up is not an option. Nothing else matters but moving forward and reaching that goal that we have set. That desire so much that we cannot choose anything else. We must move forward. And that's something that we can cultivate in ourselves through our mindset, through our study, through our goal setting, through our affirmations, to continually build that desire so strong that persistence is the only thing we can do until we achieve it. So I want to close with that if you're having trouble meeting your goals, you're struggling, you're finding yourself giving up, go back to what is your real desire, because desire is what is going to move us forward. Desire is what is going to allow us to be persistent. Desire is that fire, that fuel that makes everything else possible, especially in persistence. So with that, I'll turn the time back over to Coach Willie.
Thank you, Ian, for sharing that with us. It is true. You that burning desire that you have, if you add that into anything that you do, you're able to be more persistent and you're able to push forward. So thank you so much for that. Now I have the chance to be able to share with you about this principle of persistence, and not just persistence, but when it comes to the decisions that we make before being persistent, how to be decisive and not stubborn. How many of you have ever been so focused on a goal that you actually got in the way of yourself? I know that's happened to me a lot, because I remember when I first started in this personal growth industry back in 2018, I wanted to read more. That's it. That's all I had. That's the desire I wanted. I simply wanted to read more, because at that time I was a dyslexic who was shy and who only read maybe an average of one book a year. I wanted to read more. A statistic came across, wasn't motivational or anything, but it said 95% of CEOs read 50 or more books a year. And I thought that would be really cool to be a CEO and a business owner. But ain't no way, dude. Ain't no way I'm reading 50 books. 12, on the other hand, a book a month didn't seem too bad. In my mind, though, I said I wanted to reach 50 eventually. I want to hit 12 right now. And the only way to get that is to take a book off of my bookshelf, to open the page of chapter 1 and start reading. That was the only journey forward that I could see. So that's what I did. Went over to the bookshelf, grabbed a little purple book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, opened to chapter 1 and started reading. And over the next couple months, I only read a few books. And I knew that if I kept doing it, I'd be able to reach 12. But there'd be no way for me to reach that 50 that I really wanted to. Halfway through that journey, a friend came up to me and we were talking about our goals. And I shared with him, yeah, I'm wanting to read these 12 books by the end of the year. He's like, dude, had you heard of Audible? And I'm like, no, what's that? He said, the books that you're reading, they read them to you. All you got to do is listen. So he logged me into his account on my phone, said, dude, listen to a couple books. And if it works for you, get your own account and start doing it that way. And I'm like, sweet. So I started listening to books. I turned my car into a library. Ain't no music, ain't no silence. I was just solely focused on reaching these 12. Even during the nighttime, where it was for gaming and watching videos, I switched that to then be for reading. And I eventually reached the 12 book mark and surpassed it to reading 50 books in a year. Now, I've come across this idea that has really helped me out, which is when it comes to decision, which in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book is the principle right before persistence. Because before you are persistent in anything, and let's just define that, okay? Let's just be super clear. Being persistent simply means that you're doing what you say you're going to do. That's what it comes down to. That you're just consistent in whatever it is you want to do. Decision, you got to decide on what you want to do in order to be consistent in doing the thing you want to do. Is that fair to say? So if that's the case, you got to be decisive and choose a goal, a desire, your vision, your Northern Star, your finish line, whatever you want to call it. You decide on that. For me, it was reading those 12 books. But then there's a difference between being decisive and being stubborn, which is if you are stubborn, you have the goal in mind and that's solid. But the path going forward, there is a single path to take. You know the best path. You think that's the perfect path and that's the only way to do. No deviating. If something's in the way, you just barrel through the wall, trying to get to that destination just by going in a straight line. But that's the way to be able to get burnt out. That's the way to make things feel impossible. And that's the way when people make these New Year's resolutions saying, I'm going to go work out, so I'm going to go get a gym membership. That's why a couple weeks later, they ain't at the gym anymore, but it still shows up on their credit card statement. Because they are being stubborn simply because they are seeing the journey as a single route to take. But winners and champions know that the route you take is going to change, but the goal will never change. Let me say that again. Winners know that the route you take is going to change, but the goal will never change. So the ones who are decisive, the ones who make a decision and actually achieve it, are the ones who are rock solid with what they want, but today, the daily actions, the weekly steps, the monthly goals, the 90-day sprints, whatever it is, they know they're going to adapt and adjust. Just like driving a car. If you go from your house to Walmart, you point your car to Walmart, you hit the gas pedal and start going, I can guarantee you're going to hit a building. So how do you get there? You turn on the roads, you stop at the stoplights, you wait for the pedestrians, you speed up when the speed limit gets faster, and then eventually, after all those things together, you get to Walmart. That's what we need to be doing with the things that we're wanting. Because if we make a decision on a goal, how do we be persistent? How do we be consistent in what we're doing? It's about solidifying what we truly want, but being adaptable in the steps and the ways to get there. One of the things that I love teaching people that I work with is my 2% rule, which my 2% rule is if your goal is 100%, the 2% rule is 2% action every single day to get to the goal. For me and reading those 12 books, my 2% action, which what got me out of my comfort zone so I can grow and learn, but also small enough to where it was still able, I was still able to do it, was to go pick a book and starting to read chapter 1. As I went along that journey, then it got to the point to where I don't just want to read 12. The ultimate goal, the big one, was to read 50. And as I shared it with people, one of my friends came up and was like, dude, do you know about Audible? You can listen to books. And there was a decisive moment that I had to choose. I had to choose if I was going to be stubborn and continue down the path of only reading paper books, or truly understand what my goal was, which my goal with reading 50 books was to be able to be a different person at the end of those 50 books. It is never about the end goal, ultimately. It is about the person who you become when you reach that point. So I had that realization that I wanted to be a different person when I reached that point. And it was more important for me to be able to get the information than to simply, from this one stranger that I had, say that you can only read paper books to be able to achieve reading these 12, reading these 50 books in a year. No, I decided that it's not just paper, but it's also listening. And it could also be watching videos to be able to get there because I simply wanted the information to be different at the end. Just like as I grew up with dyslexia, so many people see it as a negative, but that is just this one path. The other path is the empathy, the creativeness, the out of the box thinking, the pattern recognition, all these great things that also come with dyslexia. There are so many paths to take. And so I get to choose the path. And you champions with the things that you're doing, you get to choose the path. Now, all that's dandy. We make a decision. Cool. We want to go one route. Awesome. Now we know there's many routes that we can take along the journey. Cool. So Willie, what the heck? What the heck do we do next? What is the next step on being this persistent self to be consistent every day? The next step after getting clear is to step on the gas pedal. It's to just start going because the perfect plan ain't going to be there. The perfect way to go through the wall of limitations, of going around the stresses of anxiety and fears of failure, of public speaking, of whatever it is that you have to go through. The best thing to do is to hit the step on the gas pedal and to start driving that car. And how do you do that? One of the best ways that works for me, especially in those moments where I don't feel motivated, because I'm sure a lot of us feel that way. When I don't feel motivated to do something, I break it into the smallest component possible because I can do small things for a small time. That is very easy for me to do. And it seems like with the people I've worked with and people I've talked with, that is very easy for them to do. That if we break it down to something really simple, it's easy. It just gets done. We're able to do it. So from what I've learned from my life, there's this thing called 1 minute, one thing. So if you are lacking in motivation, lacking in the need to be consistent, let's break it down into the simplest of things. 1 minute, one thing is pick a single thing you can do for 1 minute, 60 seconds that helps out with whatever you want. So for example, I know that this principle came from me having to clean the house. I was sitting on my chair, swiping on social media, looking around, seeing all the clothes, all the trash, had no idea what else was going on in the house, and I just knew it needed to get clean. And if any of you know, especially you parents out there, what Mount St. Laundry is, yeah, we had about 3 of those in our house. The best thing for me to do in that point was to pick one thing to pick up for 1 minute with zero expectation after of having to clean up the rest of the stuff. I said, that sounds reasonable. So I chose the trash. So went around, picked up the trash for 1 minute, put it in the trash can, done. And this strange phenomenon happened. When I started to move my body physically, I felt more motivated to start cleaning more. So then after that 1 minute, I thought, okay, now I could do a minute and start picking up the dirty clothes that are in this room. So I picked up the dirty clothes and threw and put them in the laundry hamper. And then I felt a little bit more motivated. And I said, okay, I guess I can spend 3 minutes doing the dishes. So then I went and did the dishes. And over, it's stacked to where then I was able to clean up my place. When it comes to our desires and the goals that we want, when we make that decision on the things that are on our vision board, the things that are our dreams, breaking it down to the smallest thing that we can do today is going to help you be persistent in the long run, which another word for persistent is consistent. So if you want to be consistent in the long run, break it down into the smallest thing possible. If you want to speak on more stages, simply grab your phone, hit record for 1 minute, sharing something inspirational. If you want to be a YouTuber, jump on your laptop for a minute, put in your email, and create a YouTube channel. If you want to work out, do push-ups for a minute or planks. If you want to gain more knowledge, find a motivational video on YouTube that's a minute long that you can watch and be like, cool, I learned a little bit today. Whatever it is for you, break it down to the smallest components, because as you break it down to bite size, you're able to be that consistent self. And you will then learn the skill of being persistent. Persistent as you're consistent will get you to your goal. I want to thank you guys you guys, goodness, how casual are we here? Thank you, champions, for listening to this awesome training that we have from Jon Kovach Jr., from Ian Stermer, and as myself as the speakers. It is great to be able to have you here. We have more of these trainings, not just on persistence, not just on decision for last month, but all the principles from Think and Grow Rich, as well as different trainings from different expertises and skills that people have mastered on our YouTube channel. That is at My Champion Circle. And you can go to our website, mychampionscircle.com, where I'll have the links to those and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. And so if you are wanting to be persistent and more consistent, if you're wanting to learn and grow, that is the place to start. If you are needing a place to start, then go to our website and you'll be able to find videos and find things to help you move forward. And as always, champions, just simply put the foot on the gas pedal and you'll be able to truly be consistent and persistent in your life. You champions are awesome. Thank you for the speakers for joining us. And each of you have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next training.